Perfect. Let's get it.
All right, let's get this. I'd like to welcome everybody to our first podcast. This is Robert Head with Hemp for Victory. Cannabis is used as medicine for thousands of years or longer. Veterans have been using cannabis after coming home from war efforts for the past thousands of years as well. That is until the 1930s. In the U.S., World War I veterans were the last ones to have access to it. Veterans from World War II and on will have to rely on pharmacological treatments to recover from their time in service. The Hemp for Victory campaign allowed industrial hemp to be used for the war efforts. Now Hemp for Victory wants to legalize the whole plant to save our veteran community. Our first event at Texas Live had over 300 military leaders of past and present to show their support for legalization because they know the positive impact that the cannabis plant is having on our veteran and military community. And this is why our mission is to educate and bring awareness to all levels of leadership in our communities, industries, and government about industrial hemp, CBD, and medical cannabis, and the positive effect it has on helping veterans manage their mental and physical recovery from serving. I'd like to introduce you to some of our board members. Todd Scattini, a West Point graduate and owner of Harvest 360, and Mike Bajuz. Did I say that correctly, Mike? I want to make sure I did.
That's easier repeating that by you, but it's all good.
Okay, good. Also a West Point graduate and a graduate of Yale Business School of Management. Thank you guys for being here. And Todd, let us know a little bit more about our board. What can you tell us about our board that makes it so special? And you need to become unmuted.
Of course, that's how I start all my conversations, unmute. So this board, we've built a really powerful board around this particular mission. And I think it's all because we share the same values and the same vision and focus of, explaining to both the military and the veteran community the opportunity that's associated with the re-legalization of the cannabis plant, all the way from the hemp and industrial side, all the way to medical and on through to the adult use of this plant. We're really focused on hosting this conversation, especially where military leaders, veterans, and cannabis expertise can intersect, right? Because we think it's really important to have this conversation, and we think that we can be part of helping the greater military community develop the vocabulary to have this conversation, a vocabulary that's less about punishment and prohibition, but more about the opportunity that is associated with the relegalization of this plant, right? So, Robert, you know the story, but I'll tell the story a little bit. We created this team, we created this effort in November of 21. When I called up Robert, we had met on LinkedIn, fellow veterans, both focused on cannabis legalization. And I called up Robert, who was living in Dallas, Texas. And I said, hey, I'm coming down there because the Army is about to beat the Air Force in a football game in November of 21. They did, by the way.
Yep.
And I think that it's going to be an incredible intersection of leaders in one location, and we should establish an event and hold the Hemp for Victory post-game mixer. It was a huge success, as you said, and I think we saw from the success of that event that we should be doing this more and more often, right? And the intersection of all of this leadership and education can be very influential, educational, and help leaders make an informed decision about how to recognize what's happening on a societal level with the re-legalization of this plant. So I'm a co-founder of the organization. You can read my bio on the website, but yeah, I'm a West Point graduate, served in the Army for 27 years, retired as a lieutenant colonel. I was an armor officer. I was a diplomat. I was the Army attaché in Bosnia and the defense attaché in Slovenia. And I've been an activist for cannabis for the last 6 years, serving on several boards and also working deeply within the cannabis industry itself. Robert, you are an incredible part of our board as well, and I thank you so much for your energy and leadership. We need an enlisted guy on our board. You are really showing true leadership. We all know that officers somehow get to be in charge, but the people who run the Army are the non-commissioned officers, and so you bring so much of that to the table. Other distinguished leaders on the board include Corey Millsap, right? So still a reserve Army officer. And sorry,
he's a captain in the reserves. Yeah,
captain in the reserves, providing all of his skills and expertise in terms of logistics as well as financial advice to our 501c3. We have Frank Kirby coming from Manhattan, Kansas, a retired aviator, warrant officer, and the owner of Zoe CBD. He was also at our first Hemp for Victory post-game mixer. Follow that up by Dr. Corey Birchman, Navy veteran, Harvard-trained anesthesiologist, professor at Dartmouth College, professor of anesthesiology. He's also the chief medical officer for Acreage Holdings. But as I said, 15-year Navy veteran and deeply committed, widely regarded as one of the world's most renowned medical professionals and experts on cannabis. Side note, both Corey Birchman and I will be speaking at EarthX in Dallas, Texas in April of 2023. So that's very exciting. Additionally, we have Major General retired from the U.S. Air Force, Todd Bunting. Major General Bunting was the Adjutant General of the Kansas National Guard for over a decade.
Yep.
And today he's a retired military officer. He also runs the SAVE Foundation, but he provides leadership and presence and true critical thinking and leadership support to our team regularly. So we're really proud to have him. And finally, I'll end with Chris Wolfenbarger, right? Another enlisted man from the Kansas City area where I'm located. Chris and I ran a podcast called Veterans on Cannabis for over a year during COVID, where we hosted Medal of Honor recipients and many of the board members that are on our board during that conversation, to include Robert Head. So we've got an absolutely star-studded team, and that's why too I want to personally introduce Mike Bajuz, who's a fellow West Point graduate, 2016 graduate, right? Also recent Yale School of Business Administration or Business Management graduate, so a real business and thought leader. Mike and I came into contact also through LinkedIn because the West Point cannabis community is actually expanding quite a lot.
It is.
And I want to bring a lot of those people onto our board as well. There's a lot of leadership that we can take advantage of. But Mike, we're certainly pleased to have you. We're certainly happy to have you there at the first Hemp for Victory Foundation meeting, an event. And we're certainly pleased to have your talents directed towards the organization and our effort.
Mike, I wanted to ask you too. What was your viewpoint? Because I mean, Todd and I put it together, so we have a certain perspective of how that event went. How did you think that event went? Because that event is really what catapulted our idea to form this 501c3 called Hemp for Victory.
Well, absolutely. Well, first of all, Todd, thank you for those very kind words. Really appreciate the intro. Rob, as always, organizing and holding them down. I really appreciate it. That leadership, that NCO enlisted leadership that Todd spoke about, really showing it right here. Right. In terms of the event, absolutely. First of all, we beat Air Force. It's just a cherry on top. Can't beat that. But it was a really solid event, and I really did not know. I introduced myself to Todd through LinkedIn because I'm the co-partner CEO of Green Light Cannabis, a hopefully soon to be licensed disabled veteran operated dispensary in New Jersey. So knock on wood, we'll see. Hopefully it comes in the very near future. But I really wanted to reach out to the leadership within the Army veteran community. And I'm connected through Todd, through LinkedIn. We spoke and he said, hey, you got to come to Dallas, see the Air Force game, and just meet a bunch of leaders, thought leaders, just a bunch of really cool people in the industry that have experience and are willing to connect. And that's very unique about the cannabis industry, that people are very open to suggestions, open to help, open to networking. So to answer your question, I went there and I was blown away because I thought to myself, okay, it's going to be a lot of veterans, a lot of anti-cannabis viewpoints. Is that the devil's lettuce? Stay away from me. I don't want to piss hot, as they say, even if you don't smoke it. But I went there and I was very pleasantly surprised by the amount of really leaders that were there present.
Mm-hmm. What is it about these conversations? Why should conversations get started in today's world to be able to pass and get legislation moving, right? This is a very unique issue. This is an issue that it's not like some of the, I think probably something that's close to it as we've seen may have been gay marriage, right? Where it was, everybody was okay with it. Nobody ever really had an issue with it. There were just small select issues built into our society that we believed that weren't true. Right. And through a lot of the hard work that those activists went through, we saw a massive change. Right. I think we're in that pivoted point right now. But these discussions, how do discussions with leaders? Now, I'm not talking about preaching to the choir, because we do a lot of that in this industry. And I love it. And we need to continue to do a lot of it. But what about talking to our leadership about this? Because how does that in itself, how in this country where it's a capitalistic country, we're driven by our own freedoms, we're driven by what we can do on our own merit, but we also have a massive influx of thousands of cultures and thousands of religions all into one landmass. So how do these discussions move the needle? Todd?
I'll take that. This is a paradigm shift. Bottom line, I tell people that all the time. The re-legalization of cannabis is a paradigm shift, and it's having an impact on a societal level, right? Numerous impacts, as a matter of fact. There are factors of fairness and social justice and equity that are being impacted through the re-legalization of this plant, right? We're no longer putting human beings in cages for a plant that is, treating grandma's glaucoma, or, and bottom line is safer than sugar, and certainly safer than the pharmaceuticals that were issued. There are economic impacts that are taking place because of cannabis legalization. And these are impacts, not just at the individual level, but to the international level. Right. I mean, we have a NATO ally north of us, Canada, who has legalized the adult use of cannabis. Germany, the 6th largest GDP on the planet, will do the same thing very soon. And the United States has over 40 states with medical cannabis. So this is a major economic impact. There are also, and really importantly, by the way, sustainability impacts that are taking place through the re-legalization of cannabis, both on the hemp side, with its ability to sequester carbon, and with its byproducts that are able to be used as building material that don't emit and require a carbon expenditure, but actually suck in carbon as they're being used, right? So there's a major aspect to this. But finally, most importantly, I think to our community, is this health and wellness impact that's taking place with the re-legalization of cannabis, right? So let me just continue this. I'll tell you, like, the Army has been very successful in driving paradigm shifts since its inception. The military in general drives paradigm shifts. And this one will be no different, by the way, right? So we are the Army that provided vaccines during the Revolutionary War. We are the Army that advanced plastic surgery through war efforts, or advanced amputation. We improve social fairness issues, right? We take on LGBTQ issues and integrate that into our ranks, right? The integration of races happens within the Army. We take hold of really complex issues and we drive them forward to advance our society. That's why the military should really wrap their head around this, right? This is the society that they're supposed to defend, right? So they have to understand the issues that are impacting the society, especially this one, because this is one that could save the lives of soldiers in combat, and it can allow veterans and their families to thrive after service. So military leaders need to get past the pot puns and all of the Cheech and Chong stereotypes of this plant and really wrap their heads around what the opportunity is as we go forward. So that's why it's so important, Robert.
That's a good point. And when you first brought up, we started talking about how it affects the ranks inside of a business, the ranks inside of a community, your analysis test, not the ability not to, problems with health and everything of that nature. But let me send out some statistics when we start talking about, because that seems to affect everybody, right? And people are saying, well, you guys are focused on veterans. Well, let me send out a statistics to you. When it comes to veterans, they are, in general and overall, compared to the general population, more educated. In general, overall, they make a little more money. In general, overall, they are also more susceptible to multiple conditions of health. In general, overall, they're also more susceptible to alcoholism. In general, overall, they're more susceptible to homelessness. In general, overall, they're 60% more likely to use cannabis than another medicine because of the struggles they have despite where they live. So when we talk about how these discussions about how it's affecting the economy, how it's affecting our community, how it's affecting the raising of children or parental rights, when we talk about these, we are talking about veterans. We are specifically talking about veterans because they make up that group, majority of that group. So I wanted to ask you, Mike, what do you think about when you talk about conversations that lead and we talk about the overall look in how this affects our society, remembering that veterans are basically a small snapshot of your general public?
So one thing you kind of hinted on with your prior question, Rob, was really the economic impact, the economic analysis, because America is a capitalistic country, right? Mm-hmm. And we firmly believe, unlike some other countries, right or wrong, but in the U.S. at least, we firmly believe that economic incentive will lead for a better, more progressive future, whatever your definition of progressive is. So one thing I really want to highlight is what we see is veterans performing the leadership that we have from the military. And I saw this both in Wall Street, because I used to work on Wall Street after my time in the Army, and in the classroom at Yale. Veterans approach situations differently. We aren't maybe the smartest people in the room, but we can definitely know how to operate under pressure, duress, restrictions. There's so many different things that just because of our time in the military, we can operate and we can cope with. This cannabis industry, as you're noticing in different states, New York, New Jersey, every state has different laws. Every state has, you hear things are being delayed. There's so much pressure and the laws are always changing. And it's so easy that one of the things they always ask, hey, do you know it's federally illegal? You know that you cannot get the plant from outside the state, even though it can be cheaper. Veterans have to follow the rules, and we have that ingrained within us. So from the capitalistic perspective, we can see how veterans, because of our background, following the rules, operating under pressure, hurry up and wait. We all know that. We can succeed in this environment. And the environment, as we saw with New Jersey, for example, within the first month, $1 million of revenue was made just from 12 or 18 dispensaries. But if you think about it, 18 dispensaries made $1 million of revenue the first month.
That's amazing.
Veterans can operate these type of industries very under pressure with a lot of rules and restrictions, and they can create a positive impact in their community. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the capital, so I want to hit that very capitalistic viewpoint of making positive impact for their families and their communities, knowing what they know.
Yeah, and that was interesting because I was shocked to see them completely try to not even suggest that we should look into the banking issues this year. They really disregarded it and kept kicking that can down the road. And I got a feeling that I don't know how much further they can keep kicking that can down the road by not addressing these issues. And that's one of the principles, right? There's a foundation of business that most companies need, and they need to have access to the same capital that everybody else has access to. That means banking systems and tools and trades and everything else. And I think when that happens, you're going to see a large increase in support. But they're not there yet. And what we're seeing is individual leaderships, both in political groups, whether they're PAC groups, whether it's a political party, whether it's an industry, right? Whether it's the arms industry, right? Or maybe it's the industry for Boeing or aviation or whatever it is. They're very much on the fence about legalization, and a big reason is their lack of knowledge. Well, what happens if I have a guy that comes in who doesn't want to take his pain medication from the VA and he starts using cannabis and he comes in and makes a mistake? Well, that's a misrepresentation of cannabis. right? Because I know that a lot of us do microdosing throughout the day. I can work perfectly functional. I just don't want my knees to hurt. I can work perfectly functional. I just don't want my back to hurt. And I think a lot of us have that approach. But what they do is they believe that, well, we have a small percentage, 2-3%, that's going to ruin it for the rest of them, and we can't allow that to happen. And I think that thought process is an assumption of the future that has not even happened yet, and that probably won't happen. But because of the history of this plant being demonized the past 80 years, it makes sense that they would believe these myths. So now we have to educate them, even on the simple things. What is microdosing, and how does it really affect the body? And it seems like we're having to start all the way back. That's one situation that I have seen, and there's several others. Tell me a situation where you've seen where you could tell that the leadership just does not understand this plan.
If I may jump on that one little point that you mentioned with the banking, the SAFE, it's called, a lot of times recently it was called the Safe Banking Act. And what we see, it's kind of, I want to say that there's a bit of parallels, for example, within the crypto industry as well. The biggest thing that happened recently with the crypto industry is because of lack of regulation, because of lack of awareness, oversight, understanding, you see all these scams, FTX, for example, happen.
Yeah.
If there was clear enforcement regulations, transparency, which is what we also need in the cannabis industry, because if you want to make it safe and legal and everyone prosperous, people have to feel comfortable to see where their money is going to, where it's headed, is it safe? That's why we welcome regulation. We welcome oversight, because that will very help out everyone. So I just want to make a quick little point on what you mentioned, Robert.
No, it's a good point. I think it's regulation and oversight is going to be the best approach to a good market. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah. We have to recognize too, I mean, we're in the process of building an industry from the underground up. Okay, this is an industry that has been suppressed for 87 years. Now, it thrived in the underground, but it also gave rise to, criminal drug cartels and, massive systems of enforcement and incarceration and rehabilitation and a bunch. None of this stuff was good. So, but now we're in this really precarious moment where we're building the industry from the underground up. And that means that we're taking, different forms of regulation. We're learning as we go. People are just getting used to this, and it's going to take some time. But Mike is right. We said we want you to legalize weed. We want you to tax and regulate it. Tell us the rules, and we'll follow the rules. And that's what's happening across the country now. We're making, and I shouldn't say we, but the cannabis industry is making hundreds of thousands of jobs, billions of dollars in revenue, which equals, hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue for states and for the federal government. And that's all with the yoke of 280E rules around the neck of this industry, meaning that you can't write off cost of goods sold, you can't write off your labor, you can't write off X, Y, and Z of property and all this other stuff. You just wait until that's gone, because this is the original great American industry, and it's the next great American industry as well, because through 87 years of prohibition, we have been unable to apply advanced thought and thinking and technology to what is the world's most complex and therapeutically active plant, right? Now we get to do that. We're unleashing the innovation of America and the world. We're unleashing the academic prowess of our country. We're unleashing and kind of, sparking and capturing the imagination of the entrepreneurial spirit of America. And it's really beautiful to watch, because veterans are right in the middle of it, and veterans are benefiting from it regularly. I'm just hoping that we can get real military leadership who has, bold, courageous visions of addressing super complex issues through creative ways, right? That's what we were built to do. That's why West Point was founded. West Point was founded by a hemp farmer, by the way, Thomas Jefferson, massive hemp farmer. Did you know the Pentagon and Arlington National Cemetery both sit on former hemp fields as well?
That's awesome.
Plant is a thread that runs through the nation. It's a really common thread that runs through the nation. All the good stuff and all the bad stuff We got to understand it all, capture it, and direct it towards our future, because it's our kids are going to inherit this. And so
I agree. And I think for us to have a better nation going forward, both military and veteran wise, when we get to the point where we legalize cannabis, you're going to see a lot of veterans that are going to start going towards, who hadn't already, finding that niche. And it's going to take time. I think people need to understand that this is, when you switch over, things aren't going to be great. It's not about that. That's not how life works. Life is not social media. Life is not streaming from Netflix. None of that is true. The truth of the matter is, once it becomes legal and we are start using it, it's going to be trial and trial of finding things that fit. Some of us may work better in a social environment where there's 5 or 6 people and someone who there's a group therapist. They go and they smoke, or they have their little function for 20 minutes. They sit down for an hour session. Things of this nature. These are things that could pop up all over the United States that would help vets, right? Veterans that are missing limbs, that are having mental issues, that are wanting to get jobs in the industry, that are fascinated by it, that don't want to go to jail for, or lose their family or things that they've worked so hard for. And these discussions kind of help people feel a little bit more comfortable about this plant and where they're going with it. I think we, as veteran leadership, especially with Hemp for Victory, that's why our focus was the 501c3 and not a 501c4.
Right.
501c4 means I got to spend time with a lot of politicians, and that is not my forte. I do love the people of America. I love this country. I love the vets and everything else. But politics is not something that is makes sense, right? Just because you have a sensible argument doesn't mean it's going to go through. There's too much corruption in our federal government. We've seen it. This past 4 years has been extremely obvious about how bad our government is. We did not have any idea that we were on, they were more concerned about the people inside the United States and everything else around us. And if they were really concerned about us, they would listen to us. But they're not. And the reason they're not is because they hear Cheech and Chong, like you were saying. Nothing against Cheech and Chong. I love those guys. They've done a phenomenal job, but they understand this exact argument. Presented as a professional manner. Here's the scientific evidence. Here's the sociological evidence. Here's the economic evidence. Here's the financial structure of how this economy is working. And here how all of that wraps up and is affecting our military and our veteran population in our community. In order for us to be able to win this argument, they've got to understand how all these three connect. And that's what I think was really important about us. People kept saying, well, what are you guys doing? We're creating discussions. We are trying to clear the fog of our leaders about this plant and its effect on the military veterans. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
and that is the sole purpose of this podcast. We want to find specific topics to talk about. Put them in the comments down there. Tell us about a topic that you want to hear, that you would be fascinated to know more about. And we'll find subject matter experts. We'll bring them in and we'll do a 20-minute, 30-minute session where we talk about that. We answer those questions because leaderships, they think that they know and they don't. We're not in the business to teach you how to grow. We're not in the business to teach you how to roll a joint. We have plenty of opportunity out there to show you how to do that. But if you want to understand really why this plant should be legalized and how poorly illegal it is, then you need to follow us and you need to talk to us. Next week, or not next week, excuse me, the next month, we got a really interesting one. Todd Scattini, you're going to be talking at EarthX along with our other board member, Dr. Corey Birchman. We want to talk a little bit about this next time, what you're going to talk about. So give us like a brief 5-minute history. And then when we come back next week, Mike, you'll be back with us. And Todd, we're going to discuss a little bit about the origin of Todd's discussion at EarthX. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks a lot for that. Yeah, so I will be speaking, the subject of my discussion will be hemp, cannabis, and controlled environment agriculture in post-conflict reconstruction. That's a big mouthful to say, that hemp can be the backbone of an economy and a post-conflict reconstruction effort, right? What that means, post-conflict reconstruction means the period of time after a war takes place where you're rebuilding infrastructure, where you're establishing an economy, and putting people back to work. right? Think post-World War II and the Marshall Plan, for example, where the United States government gave millions and millions of dollars to 16 different countries across Europe that had been destroyed, right? Those include former Nazi Germany and former fascist Italy, right? But they gave money to all of these countries to reestablish the agricultural infrastructure. So my concept's a little bit different. It's actually kind of a mix of the Hemp for Victory program that took place during World War II, where we re-legalized cannabis in the United States, and the Marshall Plan. The concept is that we could be rebuilding homes and infrastructure using hempcrete in Ukraine once a peace descends on that nation, and once there is kind of a future focus rather than just survival. The idea is that hemp and cannabis can provide at least Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Which is the first thing you have to really be focused on when you're doing a reconstruction project after combat. Right. So this is a single plant that is so giving that can provide us with food, fuel, fiber, building material, and medicine, all of which are desperately needed. The bonus is that when you're growing hemp, it is able to rehabilitate and cleanse soil, right? The soil of Ukraine is absolutely destroyed now because of the warfare that's been taking place. Many of the agricultural fields are poisoned with fuel and explosives and blood and just all of the destructive things. War is one of the most polluting things that we can do in the world. And hemp can actually help reinvigorate that soil, cleanse that soil, and simultaneously sink carbon.
Yep.
And the bonus is that the byproducts of that can go into building carbon negative homes, right? And that's through the use of things like hempcrete and hemp wood, both of which suck in carbon as they're being made. And then, it rebuilds infrastructure that is out of hempcrete that is mold, mildew, pest, and fire retardant. It is. And again, it sucks in carbon and has a super high R value, which means that, you have to heat less in the winter and cool less in the summer. So the energy drain coming from these buildings would be much less and be more
good insulator. Yeah.
Yeah. Great insulator.
It's a great insulator. I think it's going to be fascinating. In EarthX too, you're going to find that there's what's great about EarthX is it's kind of an involvement of all things green, right? Mm-hmm. From aerosol cans to hemp to everything else. And they haven't really focused too much in on hemp recently or lately, largely because of it being illegal. But now that it is, I think that they want to open up into it. They definitely believe in it. Trammell Crow is he's been in Dallas his name's been in Dallas for ages, as long as I can remember, and I've been in the Dallas area all my life, right? So I'm seventh generation Texan, and he's been around for a very, very long time. His family's been around, been done really well. So I think it's going to be extremely exciting to see you guys there in this next topic. When we have our next podcast, we're going to talk a lot about that. Mike, I want to give you an opportunity to say anything that you wanted to bring up about this podcast and some of the discussions we're having.
Well, first of all, I'm just excited to begin this conversation to inform people. But a lot of times I'm feeling, even from my perspective, my angle, and even this group, I know we're talking about it. It's very hard to start the ball rolling. Put yourself out there on LinkedIn or whatever platform that we're using right now. But it just takes that big first step. And we just want to really, as you mentioned before, invite veterans, thought leaders, send us questions. We want to actually answer and give an honest perspective, an easy answer, not an easy, but an answer you can understand. We're not trying to sound like professors that, we give you the fluff around it and you just end up 15 minutes later, what did I hear? We want to give you like a straightforward, honest answer that we can best provide. So we're just really excited to begin this and just bring the questions on. Let's get it.
That's right. Well, one of the things I like about being enlisted with the officers is that sometimes you can break it down Barney style, and that kind of helps out. I know that's an old comment, but it's very common. We've been in this. I think it's something I want to bring up a point right before we close. We've been in this industry, I have at least, since 2014, 2015, right? And so I'm coming up on a decade. And I can tell you, I know a lot more about it. So I use phrases and I'll use words, and I have an understanding that most people do not. And when we're talking to people from another, especially from another industry, right? Maybe it's a politician, maybe they work in aviation, maybe they work in something else. They don't know the cannabis industry. And so a lot of times we take a lot of complex conversations, and it's important to break it down to the point where it's digestible and easy to understand by most layman's terms, right? Most everybody who's been educated, they can understand it, right? If you talk to me about programming computers, you're going to lose me. But if you give me a 30,000 foot overview of it, I can understand it. See what I'm saying? So that's a lot of things that we're going to strive to do on this podcast, to really make things make sense out of complex issues. All right. I'd like to thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate all the hard work. We're continuing to do this. You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Remember, let vets choose, all right? Talk to you guys later.